happened is that we started talking about how can we assist and how can we help. And when she graduated from her doctoral degree, we said, let's start with the project. So we went on into, change it. To create an organization, a non-for-profit organization. And with the help of my colleagues in the law school, we were able to get that project registered with the government. And it's about enhancing, exploring, and empowering. So what we want to do is enhance the educational skills of girls. We want to make this a social change for many of the girls, and we want them to have leadership roles in society. And then the purpose of it is to break down barriers. Breaking down barriers for all of these girls, including girls with disabilities. So many of these children do not have a place where they could go and have a community, an education, empowerment, and a trajectory to go to the university. So this is where Sister Veronica, or Dr. Sister Veronica Robb, joins in and starts visioning how we could get this project moving, and we start the partnership. And she's gonna go ahead and explain a little bit about how she came about the idea.
So good morning. Okay, Dr. Diana said I was a student, and from there we became friends. Telling us the value of teacher, the relationship between a teacher and a student. And our relationship has been strong, and it has bore fruit. So as she has told you, I come from Kenya, from a humble family. And at the time when I went to school, girl education was not really valued. So I struggled to go to school alone, and when I went to high school, we were about 25 girls. At the end, when I reached Form 4, I was the only one. Others had been married off, or they lacked school fees or interest. And reflecting on my own life, what education has done to me, that is why when she asked me, when she came for my PhD doctoral graduation, she asked me, what can I do? So the gift I chose is we start a school with her, so that I can make an impact and help other girls really have an education. From where I come from, I have seen many girls, they drop out of school, or they are married off. So the idea of this school is really to look out for the students or girls from humble backgrounds, girls who have been married off, but they have come back home. And I believe if we empower them through education, they can really make an impact and a change for their own life and the community. So this is what we want to do. And we have here the 4 pillars for this school. One is social justice. Give the girls what is their due. When they are educated, they will be able to give back to the communities and even for their own self. They don't have to depend on anybody. So this one we have to analyze their own situation and what is going on in their areas and then provide for what is needed. Another pillar is the community. So the teamwork and live in intentional community whereby we learn from each other. Everyone has a gift, everyone has a talent, and put together we can make a change. The other one is simple living, that we prioritize people over things. Girls are important. Girls have a dignity, something that we need all to cherish. And spirituality tells about that, the dignity whereby we derive our rights. And if we educate a girl, then we have educated the whole community. That is one of our schools, and those are our pupils. And those are some of our members, the community where we are talking about.
So a few facts to consider. And I'm going to go very quickly over this one because we're going to be running out of time. And often girls are faced with barriers to education than boys do not. And this has been information that UNESCO has been looking into, and they have found. When you get an education, you become part of society. And this is part of another project that is called Girls Rising. And when we started this campaign of Every Girl is Important, I spoke with the founder of Girls Rising to make sure that we were on the right track. And they have been instrumental in mentoring us with this project to make sure that we have a sustainable outcome with the community and with the girls. And bear in mind that many people ask me, why Kenya? Well, why not Kenya? Why in Eldoret? Why not? Why with this community? Well, because we want to reach out and make sure that the education gets expanded among all of our students and all of our children. So this partnership among many women instrumental in making sure that girls have an education, including those girls who have disabilities, because we have lots of students who have emotional disturbances, learning disability, speech impairment, who have not been part of the educational system. And here with the Assumption Sisters of Eldoret, we want to embrace all of the girls in the community so they are in the path to that successful lifestyle that they're going to have. So what we did is we did another documentary. And when we were working on the documentary, we had a screening at Fordham, and we took a crew from NYU University, and we went to Eldoret to film. And then I wrote the script, and what happened with the script, I called one of my colleagues at Harvard University. His name is Dr. Henry Louis Gates, and I asked him, can you please narrate the documentary, because he has the voice for it. And he willingly did so. So what I want to do now is share with you a 2-minute of the clip of where the girls are right now. Oh, oh, we don't want that part. I'm gonna stop it here. Yeah, I'm gonna stop it there. So what happened is that the video has 4 parts. It has the introduction, it has the girls that they're talking about their aspiration. Then we go to the community, how the mothers are surviving with their children. Then we go to the slums where many girls have not been attending school because of lack of transportation and because of lack of fundings and fees. And then the concluding remarks that are done by Sister Veronica at the end. We have the video on YouTube, so if you just type on YouTube, Every Girl is Important, you will be able to watch the complete documentary. And this is basically what we have, and we have the website on the video on YouTube, as I mentioned. So you just put on the URL, Every Girl is Important, and you will be able to see the full clips, and it's 15 minutes long. So what is important and why it's relevant? And this is what we have been finding. First of all, for our students and for our faculty, having an exchange program. So we have been having students going back and forth from New York to Kenya. And this exchange has been instrumental. It has been instrumental because they have been writing case studies and they have been publishing them. They have field experience, they have worked with the community to learn about how the Kenyan educators develop their curriculum. They're working on their own research projects. We have cultural experience exchanges. It provides humanitarian assistance. So at the beginning when we started pre-pandemic to bring students, we were not completed with the project. So what happened is that many of my students started funding for the fees for many of these kids to finish high school. And then the partnership with the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Can you switch it? Oh, one of the things that happened is that at the beginning, I didn't have funds, so that was a big problem, the money. So I tried to create a GoFundMe. I created a GoFundMe page, and in the GoFundMe page, I posted this video, and we raised the first chunk of money. That's how we started, because we had zero. And I'm not gonna, you want me to play the GoFundMe, or we should go? Let's move on. And then we are working now on the implementation. So there are different stages. First was acquiring the land. That was the first stage. How do we do this? Well, with the sisters in Eldoret. They were the ones who were looking into how we're going to get the land. Government final permits. That was the longest part of the project, getting the government permits. Fundraising. So the first thing we wanted to do was fundraising and get up to $50,000. We surpassed that, that's for sure. And then buying equipment for the classroom. We are not there yet because we're still under construction. So anybody who wants to donate blackboards or whiteboards, you're more than welcome, because that's the stage where we are right now. We're going to have an opening ceremony. And we're working on the stages to include all of these girls into the process of secondary education. So we know already that a child that is born to a literate mother is 50% more likely to survive the age of 5. And that's also information from UNESCO. When we were interviewing mothers in Eldoret, in the community where we're trying to make sure that the girls have education, many of the mothers said, I do not know how to read and write, and I want my daughters to read and write. And that was very touching. So this was the primary budget. So we met with an architect who was designing the work, and then they told us what was the rate. in shillings, and then I had the dollars. So, because I needed to share with the people who were going to be donating. If India enroll 1% more girls in secondary school, its GDP will rise by 5.5 billion. And this is like a fact from India because we have a big issue as well in other countries. So it happens again in Kenya. And why this is relevant? Well, it's very relevant because many of these young adolescent girls who have not had an opportunity to pursue the high school education. And that's what we want to make sure. We want to make sure that these girls we seek to, that were born in poverty gets out of poverty. And that many of the girls who will attend the school live in villages located at long distances. So we don't want that. And what we're trying to do is that when we educate one girl, we educate the entire family. So this is the elementary school where the girls are right now. Here we have Sister Veronica, right? And she was spearheading that particular project. This is the dormitory for many of the girls in the elementary school. We're trying to, we know already that 66 million girls around the globe are still missing from attending classrooms. A girl with an extra year of education can earn 20% more as an adult. So these are facts. And think about the girls who have a disability. Their income will be even lower. So we want to dismantle that for many of our girls. Yet when you educate girls, you transform society. And that's what we want to do. We want to transform society with the sisters, the Assumption Sisters of Eldoret. We created a flyer about the boarding school, and we started distributing this a while back to different individuals who wanted to participate. And we have over 300 people who have helped out. This is a construction site where we have started, where the school is being built, so the project is underway. We've been showcased in different networks in the United States, including Telemundo, talking about what we have been doing. We went to another talk show. These are some of the students who came to Kenya, and they talk about their experience and what they have been writing about. And this is our webpage. So we have, it changed now to org, O-R-G, Every Girl is Important org. And we had here some of the closing remarks, but I want to give that opportunity to Sister Veronica to talk a little bit before we ask for you to ask us questions, to say some concluding remarks about Every Girl is Important, Sister.
In our African tradition, we have a saying that one finger can do little, but two fingers can do great things. And we are here, we say that if we can do something for one girl or two girls, we will have changed the world. So if we put our hands together, if we put our minds together, then we can do great things for our community, for our girls, and all the girls all over the world. So we are looking forward for this initiative, and you are most welcome to be part of it. Thank you.
Well, any question for us? This is like in a speed moment of 8 years of work. So we have an article published. We have submitted the proceeding of this paper as well to this conference. So there are many factors involved with the projects. So if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be around. And I appreciate your time being here with us. Okay.
joining us for this conversation. My name is Erica Watson, and I am pleased to introduce you to the work that we are doing through the Intersection Collective. We also left goodies, notebooks on your table, so if you have questions or you want to write them down, please feel free to take those with you. But a little bit about who we are, and then I'll introduce my colleagues and co-conspirators for Good Trouble in a moment. But the Intersection Collective is a collaboration of parents, families, educators, and academics working to try to understand the root causes of disproportionality in the special education system. We are also looking for evidence-based frameworks and strategies to help interrupt the direct connection for Black and brown youth in special education to the juvenile justice system and the carceral state. We respect that the solutions to supporting children and families of disability are rooted within the community. And there's a lot that we can do to build community power and to build a community of critical supporters that helps increase the effectiveness of every family's advocacy and helps improve the outcomes that all of our children are realizing through the special education system. The team that is doing this work is myself and my brilliant co-conspirators, Sylvia and Courtney, and I'll allow them to come and introduce themselves and talk a little bit more about the research behind the project that we are doing, and then I will come back and tell you all about the pilot that we are running with families in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning. My name is Courtney Wilt. I am an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. And I've been so fortunate to work with these brilliant women and scholars here. Part of my role is looking into the research and really informing our work through different spaces where really great work around family engagement and involvement is happening. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the current information around family engagement, and you'll see that this has long been identified as a high leverage practice. It improves students' performance in a variety of ways, and it has long-term, lifelong impact on children when families and schools collaborate. There is growing diversity in our student population in the United States, and at the same time, our teacher population remains majority white. And so when we see disparities in outcomes, there are many different mechanisms that contribute to that, and one of them being teacher preparation and teacher lack of diversity, but also just accessibility of materials in the law, highly legalistic framings of things, and a lack of support for English learners, immigrant families, and also general white tendencies to hoard opportunities and resources. So white supremacy is continually evolving to continue to work to hide or hoard benefits for white students, and it's often obscured and kind of hidden from the ways that it's talked about. So this slide shows just some data around, if we look at reading and if we look at graduation rates, two kind of markers of student outcomes, we can see disparities there amongst students with disabilities who are white versus BIPOC children. And this is the slide I really wanted to connect with you all about quickly. So, like I said, IDEA is highly compliance-driven and highly legalistic. This kind of automatically excludes a lot of families from really participating in ways that we see families with more social competencies and majority white families engaging in these traditional ideas of parent advocacy. It's highly individualized, so when progress is made, it's often for individual families or smaller communities rather than making a larger impact on other students who may be experiencing exclusion or inequitable practices in schools. And it's also race neutral. This should be in quotation marks because we know it's not really race neutral. The laws are written to be race neutral, to diminish the factor of race so that it goes unaddressed. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Sylvia Nyegenye, and it's been amazing to work with these wonderful colleagues of mine. So I'll go through talking about the need to reconceptualize family engagement to support BIPOC families. So BIPOC families are families of color in the United States. So in the US, family engagement is key in the educational decision-making process for students with disabilities, as stated in the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. So research shows that family engagement impacts significant decisions such as the delivery of special educational services, access to inclusive education, and the fostering of community connections outside of schools. So family engagement therefore plays a very critical role when it comes to the success of students in our schools. However, when it comes to looking at the professionals who are there in the United States schooling system, we find that most of our educators are white, they're middle class, and monolingual most of the time. So there is that struggle when it comes to working with students with disabilities who are of color. So with that, we found that families of students of color, they continue really experiencing a lot of intersecting barriers when it comes to them receiving the services that they need to. So although schools might purport to want families to contribute to their children's education, they position most of the time families of color as being deficit or less than, and this has really led to families of color feeling that they are being devalued. So we came up with this project to really look at this gap of family engagement and see the ways that we can be able to support especially families of colors. And when I talk about families of colors, I'm talking also, in addition to them, I would talk about the immigrant community in the US, the marginalized black community in the US, indigenous communities in the US, as well as bilingual and multilingual learners who are looked as second language learners. Okay, so our work, we really tried to frame it around the work of black feminism. So you can see Crenshaw right there and Audre Lorde. And these two really inform the ways that we think our work is situated within the critical critical thought of lineage that advances intersectionality as a lens for understanding how multiple forces of opposition intersect. And then in addition to that, we build in discrete. And discrete really helps us to understand and explain the experiences of students of color with disabilities and how their bodies, minds, and behaviors have been constructed as less than by society in supposedly normalized standards. So discrete acknowledges that race and ability are socially constructed. Therefore, the ways one is racialized could have dire consequences if they are racialized into a racially stigmatized group. For example, let's say you're black with a disability, and so due to these discriminations that are attached to racial identities, people might end up treating you as being less than. So we've had a lot of inequities, which I know most of you might be familiar with, especially in the US. And a good example that quickly comes into my mind is whereby children who are of color with disabilities could end up being punished more for their behavior than their peers who are white. So in addition to this, we also draw from the humanizing pedagogies, and the humanizing pedagogies really center the ways of being, looking at families of color as having strengths, as having assets that they can be able to share, and looking at them as being knowledge generators of their own selves. So the the humanizing pedagogies really helps us to recognize and looking at a person as being human, that whatever it is that they have is valuable, instead of looking at what it is that they have as being less than. And I'm from Kenya, coming from Kenya, and one place that I would really draw this from would be our own pedagogy of thinking about utu in Swahili, the humanness. I am because we are. South Africans call it Ubuntu. That whole idea is also helping us to really look at the strengths that are coming out from families of color that have always been looked at as always being deficient. So we came up with this model, and my colleague will talk about it. So the Intersection Collective came up with this village network service model that includes meaningfully engaging our parents who are of color to be able to support their students, to be able to support their children with disabilities. And this is through us developing a curriculum together with our families of color for them to be able to, in a culturally responsive way, for them to be able to navigate and understand the special education system in the US. Like, if you are familiar with this system, you'll know that the special ed system in the US has a lot of jargon. I struggled with that as a doctoral student and through all that, whereby some of the terms and terminologies are not even familiar for people who come in from a different background. And you can just imagine how this would be for a family who is an English, maybe second language learner. English is their second language, and then they have to go and navigate this whole idea, and you have to sit in this meeting to be able to discuss the goals and objectives for your child. So there is a lot of terminology, and so we thought, how best could we be able to create a training that would help these parents be able to efficiently be productive in their IEP meetings to support their students. And then we also have a peer mentors and coaching support group. So then we have the community connection part of it, which is helping our families of color to be able to see that they are not empty slates. They got something that they can be able to share. So what is it that we got that we can be able to bring into these meetings with us? So building their power. It could be that they are multilingual, which sometimes is looked at like everybody has to speak English, but we got a lot of strength in being multilingual. I think all the Kenyans who are here in this meeting, and also the ones who are probably, US is basically mostly monolingual, but then we see a lot of strength really coming out from our students being bilingual. And another thing that comes into my mind is just how much rich the community is. So you can just look at Kenya, how much we love to dance, how much we love to, share. And probably these ways are not being looked at as being the norm in some of the US settings. And then also, we just don't want our parents to have the knowledge. We have to bring this to the school. And so with our organization, we are able to develop an educator professional development training, which is really focused on now training the educators to be more culturally responsive when it comes to building partnerships with families of color.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how this work is unfolding in practice. We were able to establish a research partnership with the Cincinnati Public Schools District. In the state of Ohio, Cincinnati Public Schools is the third largest school district in the state. There are about 36,000 students that are educated in the Cincinnati Public School System, and they have about a 21% identified students with disability rate, which is higher than the national average. This school district is also disproportionately black-brown. So over 2/3 of the students enrolled in Cincinnati Public Schools identify as BIPOC, and it is, generally speaking, a high economic needs district, meaning qualifying for Title I funding. So the exact population of people, the exact population of families, we are trying to organize around and to support in their support for their students. What do we mean when we say meaningfully engaged students? We have developed a parent-centered, a family caregiver-centered special education advocacy training curriculum. You'll see the outline of the curriculum here. We have put all of our content on our platform, and families can download and listen to the training very much like you would listen to a podcast in bits and pieces, because we understand that parents, particularly supporting children with disabilities, have many, many jobs, and they don't need to add becoming a lawyer, becoming an advocate to the long list of jobs they have that they don't get paid for. So we want them to be able to absorb the content quickly as they go about their other daily activities. And so that is why it's all online, and each of the modules are 15, maybe 20 minutes or less, so that they can get in and get out. We also create communities, networked communities on our platform. So when families log into the platform for the first time, they complete a very simple profile where we ask them for information about their family composition, and we ask them for information about the specific learning differences or disabilities that they're supporting their student with. Based on that information, the platform will automatically funnel them into smaller communities or sub-communities so that they become connected to other families who are supporting similarly situated students. I'll use myself as an example. I am part of the Village Network community. My son is in the 1st grade. He also struggles with ADHD as well as dyslexia. So on the platform, I am in 3 sub-communities, one for primary school students, kindergarten through 2nd grade. The second community that I'm a part of is for families supporting students with ADHD or other executive functioning challenges. And the third sub-community that I'm a part of is one for families supporting children with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. What those sub-communities are intended to do is to provide access to information and resources specific to the disability or learning difference that you are trying to navigate through. It also facilitates peer-to-peer mentoring and connection so that I can share information with other families in my sub-community about what interventions, what supports, what resources are working and proving effective for my scholar and my learner. We also provide what we call the Village Sherpa. It's an AI-driven chatbot tool that allows families to ask open-ended, free text questions about their special education advocacy journey. So types of questions that we see come into the Village Sherpa all the time are things like, I have an IEP meeting on Thursday. How do I prepare for that? Or, my child just completed an evaluation and I don't agree with the report. What are my next steps? Or I am looking for a speech language pathologist in my community that can help, or an occupational therapist in my community that accepts Medicaid. These are the types of questions that come into the Village Sherpa, the AI chatbot, all the time, and we have trained it in partnership with a few other organizations to provide more culturally responsive solutions or answers to the questions that our families are asking. We also launched a podcast series, and so you can find episodes of the podcast on our platform. You can also find them on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts if you're interested in listening. But what these podcasts do is they uplift the journeys, they uplift the stories of families that are part of the Village Network community so that other families are inspired and motivated and encouraged. Because the special education advocacy process, as was pointed out by Courtney, can be very individualizing. It seeks to separate and to make each family feel like you're the only family dealing with this particular problem. And it also separates us out so that when I experience a win, it's only for my child. Your child doesn't get that benefit unless you do the hard work and go to court or hire an advocate or do all of the things. And so what this model is intended to do is to break down those barriers and those silos, very much in the Ubuntu spirit. I am because we are, that my wins are my community's wins. Every time I am successful at advocating for a resource or a service for my child, every other kid in my kid's school who also struggles with dyslexia or who also struggles with ADHD experiences those same benefits, experiences those same wins. What we mean by cultivating school cultures of inclusion is teaching our educators what it means to engage families from a culturally responsive point of view. Disproportionately, disproportionately educators in general are white. Special educators in particular. Over 75% of special educators in the state of Ohio identify as white, whereas disproportionately students in special education, receiving special education services, identify as BIPOC. In a survey completed with more than 1,500 special education teachers in the state of Ohio, only 32% of them expressed a level of confidence and comfort with educating and supporting families across lines of racial and cultural difference. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to train and teach our teachers cultural competence so that they can understand our ways of being, our ways of knowing, and begin to correctly interpret child behavior as well as family engagement practices. Finally, we don't want all of our support and all of our community building to be done online. We need to take these things offline, and so we also provide in-person community connections, which we call village meetings. These village meetings are often driven by topics that our families tell us are meaningful and of the moment for them right now. So last month, one of the village community meetings that we held was around parent strategies for parents supporting children and teenagers with ADHD and other executive functioning challenges. So we allow our families to take the lead in telling us what these village community meetings need to look like, and then we facilitate creating safe space for them to ask their hard, vulnerable questions and bringing in culturally responsive practitioners and experts to help guide them in building collective power in their advocacy process. It's important to point out that part of this model is based on the notion of two-way communication and power sharing. We believe that putting our families in community with one another helps them increase their confidence, but it also helps them build power. Power as a unit of driving change. So any organized group of people that have common experiences and are working together towards a common goal have what we identify as power. And what we want our families to be able to do is to understand their agency, understand their power, and use that power to engage as true partners in the education process in support of their children with disabilities and with learning differences. So our work is early stages, but like I said, in partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools, we have about 250 families that are currently on the Village Network platform and participating in our model. We're collecting really good data that shows that these families are seeing improvements in their partnership and their relationships with their schools, and we are seeing some early improvements in student gains and student outcomes. Specific examples of this work: we had one family participating in the village who's a Jamaican immigrant, single mother, unfamiliar with the American education system, let alone the special education system, her son was chronically being suspended and put out of class, put out of school for behavior problems. The mom was confident that her son was not just a behavior problem, but it took the support of the Village Network in order for the mom to be able to get her son properly evaluated, at which point he was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. At the point when her son was evaluated and received a diagnosis, he was 6 years old. Average age of diagnosing a student on the autism spectrum for a white child is closer to 24 months to 36 months, so 2.5 to 3 years of age. So it took twice the time to diagnose her black son with autism spectrum disorder, and all the time he's missing out on interventions that we know are very effective the younger a child begins to receive them, and being classified as behavioral problems, emotional disturbance, objective defiance disorder. So having the village in support of this mom, in support of this family, was able to get a proper diagnosis, was able to get proper interventions and placement, and was able to put her in a community of other families also supporting children on the autism spectrum. So that's just a case study of like how this model is working in real life. We'll leave you with our note of thanks and an invitation to engage in our community as well. If you want to scan this QR code, it will take you to our website, the Intersection Collective website, and it will ask you to be in contact with us. So if you will fill out that contact form, we will connect with you, we'll follow up with you, and we will connect you to the Village Network platform so that you can begin to leverage all of the resources that we have online. We also invite you to share this resource with your families. If you are supporting families of students with learning differences or disabilities that could benefit from any of these resources, it is free of charge for families. We never charge families for our support. So we encourage you to scan the QR code and to join the village. Questions at this point? Any questions at this point? Thank you.
for you to be introduced at a particular session. So, plus any other of our visitors from within the country. So, we are moving into another session. We are going to be well guided after tea.